big thing about some of the training we do can be flexibility. We always try to have an element. It's really important when we're in a chair all day to make sure that those muscles stay healthy, flexible for life, for ergonomics, for transfers, for comfort, for cramps. So when I'm stretching Nick, I'm gonna make sure that I'm stretching out his calves so that it's allowing him to have some, avoid some toe drop, right, and be comfortable on his foot plate here. I'm gonna make sure I'm addressing his hamstrings, his external rotators that's fancy for butt cheek and glutes, right? He's kind of on those all day. And then we're gonna do another stretch that I'm gonna show you where we're stretching out his hip flexors, the front. That's gonna be his thighs, his psoas muscle, everything in here. Super important because he's gonna spend most of his day in this bent position. And this can cause that psoas to get tight and lock up the back a little bit. So anything we can do to extend and open up his hip, create length here, is gonna be very beneficial here. So the calf stretch that we usually kind of default to is we'll lock the knee out, I'll put my chest and we'll crank on the calf muscle. We can do it with the knee straight. You can do it with the knee bent. Sometimes I'll even do it with him on his belly, and we'll get it from the back. That way it allows that calf muscle to stretch there. The hamstring, tying in under the knee here, going over the knee and into the hip joint for lower back health. I'll lock his leg out. Hold the knee straight and we'll kind of come over. This is going to hit the hamstring a little bit more near the insertion where the knee is. To get the higher hamstring, we're going to bend the knee into the chest tight. We're gonna then keep the knee close to the chest and then pull the foot over. That's gonna get a little bit of glute, but a little bit more where the hamstring originates, right, at the start there under that hip muscle there. And then for the external rotation, right, that's the leg, even though it looks different, it's twisting this way. So I'm gonna kind of make sure the femur's locked in. I put a foot over here. I'm gonna press at the tibia and fibula bone here, not at the ankle, because I don't wanna just twist the ankle. And we're just gonna try to crank, either twisting and rotating, or we can get that hip to come in a little bit. They're both good iterations of how to loosen up the hips for those 4 angles. When you do this, thinking about the hip, we pretty much got the back of the hip, the outside of the hip. We're gonna get the front of the hip. The inner, he is really flexible adductors, inner thigh muscles. So we don't need to cover that one too much, but when we go in our stomach, that's gonna be an important one. We'll show you in a second here as we just kind of do a little flip over onto our belly. And once we get situated, all right, so what I like is a couple of different stretches. One, again, you can hit the calf stretch here by just applying some down pressure. All right. The second being, once those hips are nice and level, is I can just crank the ankle to his butt cheek, creating some stretch in the quad. But even more important than that is that hip flexor. So for that hip flexor, I might bring this leg up and I might rest it on my thigh or an object. So now there's hip extension, all right, opening up that hip and then bring down here. And you're gonna feel this a little bit more effectively than he would on the ground. So it's not just stretching out the quad at the knee, it's stretching out this hip flexor and psoas underneath here. Another way to do this, I kind of call it a scorpion stretch, where we'll anchor his body down, have his shoulders out. We'll come across the body, right? And I'll just be here, opening up that hip flexor, kind of pinning where I can, and then cranking on some tension here to create length, right, in this hip flexor joint to kind of create a nice stretch there again, opening up the hip from it staying muted all day. So there's kind of a sequence of our stretches and ways we can kind of unglue some of the ergonomics that we see every day.